Hello everyone, today we're going to be looking at the circulatory system. So our learning intentions is you need to be able to explain how the transport and exchange of materials is facilitated by the circulatory system in most animals. So the circulatory system, we've seen that the respiratory system works to take oxygen into the body and rid us of carbon dioxide waste. However, where does that oxygen go once it has passed through the alveoli? Well, of course, we know it must go into our circulatory system. So I've got a few warm-up questions here. These are going to be in your check for understanding. So if you are watching the video, you'll be able to hear the answers as well. Lucky you. So how many times does your heart beat every day? The answer here is actually C. It beats 100,000 times a day. The next one is what percentage of your body weight does your blood make up? Um, in this case here, the answer is B, 8%, which actually is quite a lot if you just think about blood in comparison to what makes up the rest of your body. 8% is pretty substantial. And final question, how many liters of blood does an adult body hold? Your question answer should be 5. So 5 liters of blood that an adult body can hold. So the circulatory system works to transport nutrients and remove waste from all our cells in our body. Very, very important task that it has. But of course, different groups of animals have different setups for this. So, for example, invertebrates like mollusks and insects have what is called an open system, an open circulatory system. So, what happens is that the hunt kind of just pumps fluid in a large cavity and just bathes all the organs and tissues with nutrients. Okay. This, of course, has its advantages where it allows for more direct diffusion of materials, but there is little control to increase flow or direct it to a specific region. Okay, so just think here's the heart, and it's literally just going to pump everything, just bathe it all in these types of organs here. That's it. That's all it does. Vertebrates, on the other hand, so organisms like us, we have closed circulatory systems. So they contain a heart, but blood is pumped through progressively small vessels. So eventually materials are exchanged through capillaries, right? Capillaries are 1 cell thick. So it allows for that easy exchange of waste, nutrients, blood, materials, all of that stuff. And then, of course, the blood returns back to the heart and whatnot through progressively larger vessels. So we have two types of closed systems. This is a single circulatory system, so it consists of a heart that has 2 chambers, and blood passes through this only once per cycle. So fish use this system, as you can see here, pumping blood to body capillaries. So whatever different body parts are going to need the nutrients and everything. Then it comes through into the gills, so their version of lungs to oxygenate and deoxygenate the blood, and then finally going through the heart as well. We, on the other hand, have a double circulatory system. So in this case here, our heart consists of 4 chambers, okay? And blood passes through this twice, okay, per cycle. Amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals, and all sorts use this type of system. So coming further on, because it's a double circulatory system, there are 2 circulations. So the first one, like I said, being the pulmonary circulation. So this is the transport of blood between the heart and lungs. Okay, this is exclusive for the heart and lungs. Whereas the systematic circulation is the transport of blood between the heart and the rest of the body. So I think about body systems, systematic, right? It's everything else that needs it, or systemic, should I say? It's probably the more correct pronunciation. So again, these are going to be a few check for understanding questions, but if you are watching the video, I'm going to give you a few hints. So the first one being give 2 reasons why multicellular organisms require a circulatory system while microbes do not. So I want you to think about how easily can a singular celled bacterium or microbe be able to exchange materials with their environment? And then think about ourselves. Can our heart, can our lungs, can our stomachs easily exchange materials with the environment? Okay. The blue whale has a double circulatory system. So explain what is meant by a double circulatory system and describe the 2 circulation paths in a double circulatory system. Okay, so we just went through that in the last couple of slides. So have a look there to help you with those 2 questions. So blood, of course, we're talking about the circulatory system. This is a big part of it. So it's a fluid that transports material between cells in a multicellular organism. It's part of connective tissue, and its main components are made up of 45% of cells. That includes your red blood cells, your white blood cells, and your platelets that allow to form clots. And then the other 55% is made of plasma, so water, proteins, glucose, waste, everything else, you're going to find it in that plasma. Here's a question for you. What color is plasma? Again, this is going to be in your check for understanding. So plasma is yellow, believe it or not, a very slight tinge of yellow. Well, actually a very strong tinge of yellow, if I do say so myself. There it is. It's very yellow. It can sometimes look a bit green though, depending on the person. And we can see here our different components of our blood. This is usually separated from each other through centrifugation, so that's just spin fast, whir kind of thing. And it separates all of them based on their molecular weight. So, anyway, continuing on with our blood. So, red blood cells carry oxygen and carbon dioxide around the body. The gas molecules attract to the hemoglobin molecules in the red blood cells. So, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and other gases attract to that hemoglobin. And there are 4 of these molecules in each cell that each bind to 4 oxygen molecules. So, here's our structure of our hemoglobin protein. Got some iron here. We've got our beta chain, alpha chain, and our heme group. Okay, where it's getting its name, hemoglobin. So this is what is inside of our red blood cells. So you might have heard me mention it before. I've got thalassemia, which means that my hemoglobin I actually don't have as much, so therefore my blood cells aren't as red. It also means that I do not carry oxygen and other things around my body very well. So my circulatory system is pretty lame, pretty much. So there are different blood types throughout the population. I'm sure you've all heard of blood types before, A, B, O negative, O positive, AB. And your blood type is pretty much determined by the genes you inherit from your parents. So I inherited my thalassemia from my mum's side. Brilliant. There are 8 types of blood in total. Here's just a kind of summary. Of course, you've got O minus, O positive, B minus, B positive, A minus, A positive. But essentially, blood types depend on the presence and absence of certain types of surface antigens on your blood. So there you go. There's that word antigens again, the thing that allows you to recognize self from non-self, right? So it makes sense that if you're someone who's in requirement for blood, you can only probably get certain types. Okay, because you really don't want your body to reject the blood that's being put inside of you. So here's some additional research for you to do, which is to fill out the table below. Okay, so draw this up either in your OneNote, in your book, wherever, but you need to go have the component of blood, plasma. What does this look like? What's its role? Platelets look like role. Red blood cells look like role. Um, and also, how do red blood cells look different in people with sickle cell anemia, and how does it affect their function? If you're someone who did or has researched before malaria, you might have heard of sickle cell disease before, and you might know how that's an actual benefit for people that have malaria. But in general, sickle cell anemia isn't the greatest thing to have. But please making sure that you are completing this in your books. So blood is transported around the body in blood vessels. Okay. So we've got three types of blood vessels. Arteries take blood away from the heart, and that would be away from the heart and towards everything else. So think about the A for away. A for arteries is away. Capillaries, so these are where we become really, really thin and small, and it allows for that exchange of nutrients and waste with the cells. And then our veins transport blood back to the heart. So all blood cells have a layer of epithelial cells that reduce friction to promote a smooth blood flow. So here, artery away from heart, capillary really small, allows for exchange of material waste, and then finally vein back to the heart. So with our different types of blood veins, um, they do have a different structure to allow them to be able to do their purpose, right? So for our arteries, they're actually thick and elastic as opposed to veins that are thinner. These muscle contractions help veins to take the blood back to the heart. Veins also have a valve, right, to stop the blood from flowing backwards. I think if the blood's deoxygenated or whatnot, we don't want it. If the heart was pumping, it'd probably just keep moving like back and forth. Whereas if we've got a valve, it stops it from pushing back down towards where we don't want it to go. Capillaries need to be thin to exchange materials, of course, right? It's probably going to be one red blood cell thick to allow that easy diffusion. Okay, remember, think back to what do different transport materials or systems need to be effective. So here you go, we can see the arteries being nice and thick. Can't really see that it's elastic. Capillary, really small and thin. And then here's our vein that's got the valve to stop it from going back woods, which we don't want. What you guys need to do now is you need to draw a simple diagram of the circulatory and respiratory system. I want labels for the systemic and pulmonary circulation, the heart, arteries, veins, and capillaries, lungs, trachea, bronchi, nose and mouth, and alveoli. Like I said, it only needs to be simple.